Be calling you a radical. Really historic, incredible, sad, heartbreaking video this will be. So, it's happened again. It's happened again here at Weber State. Pseudo de facto. We're open for deposit only. No, they're not. The Stewart Library, which is under the Weber County Library umbrella, which, God, grab your library bag, Kev. You know, I knew I forgot something. Where's your can? Where's your soup can? One-man band Blanche. So, this ain't easy doing what I do. Stand up to this corrupt machine. So, they're under the Weber County umbrella, which is under a federal grant. They're not open. But let's get to the more important news than that, and then we'll talk about that. So, as you know, Trevon Smith, murdered in a jail cell. Last year, the all-time leading rusher in the history of this football program. Not when Jay Hill coached it. By the way, I'm a big fan of Jay Hill's. Don't get me wrong, and this football program, this historic turnaround. I'm a big fan of that. I've worked for Bruce Handley. He's the best player who ever played here. You know, Lee White. But anyway, he died this year. He donated his brain to the foundation that goes against the NCAA, studying brain injuries at the end. He was the dean of finance in the #1 school of business in the United States, which I taught there, which is the Wattis-Kurse. The Wattis-Kurse is the house, the Stewart Stadium. It's the only football stadium in the world named after a woman. She's the nuclear energy crime syndicate heir that built the reactors at Fukushima. This is the University of the General Electric, Utah construction floor, the Wattis-Kurse, that built. Now stay with me. Matthew Stewart, I'm in the bone marrow transplant center dying of leukemia. In January 2012, this is right when the disaster at Sinanofri happened. Talk about things on my plate. I'm going crazy, like a lot of people are in this town, about the military industrialized police force. We've been predicting it for years, so the SWAT team, their non-knock warrants, they have a hoedown shootout. I have a TV in my room, I could barely see them, and I'm not sick, I'm dying. Comes across, there's been multiple police officers shot, there's been deaths in Ogden, right here. I'm like, oh God, we've been predicting this years. I'm like, I'm sure somebody with a gun, probably an acre, he went in. Well, it was a gun. Matthew Stewart, who was a vet. He was a vet. Now, stay with me. Mrs. and Mrs. Stewart, his mom and dad, who I'm friends with, who are pillars of this community. Absolutely. His father's a non-vet. They're pillars of this community. They go all the way back to early on. Some of the very first people here, the Stewarts. Same with the Blanches. You know, we go way back. She's a gem. Mrs. Stewart, I recently just talked to her. So, it's a shootout. So, Peace Officer Dub Lawrence, who's the ex-Davis County Sheriff, does a documentary. Because, get this, in Davis County, his son-in-law is murdered by cop. It's called Peace Officer. There's a picture of he and I standing together at the opening here in Utah. You know, he's a gem, but anyway, it's happened again. Weber County Jail, the cops shot a guy. Now, if you don't know about the blur, and this is important, because the murder by cop, capital of the world, is Utah, bar none. Donovan Mitchell, Damian Lillard, wake the fuck up. You know, Trevon Smith is the all-time leading rusher in the history of this fucking program, 100 years. You don't think that's a big fucking deal? He was here at the same time Lillard was. They know each other. Lillard doesn't open his fucking mouth. You know, Donovan is so outspoken. I know Donovan from Brooklyn. His mom lives right by my mom. I mean, I talked to him in the airport as he was flying to Utah. You know, we had this conversation, he and I. He knows that. You know, so let me show you something else, and then I'll go on. This is the story. So Rico Ike, as you know, dying of leukemia, boycott the Olympics. She's going to swim this weekend. What a beautiful miracle. I hope she can open her mouth about Fukushima as a bee's in the hospital. You know, leukemia. They threw the kitchen sink at her like they did me. You know, they put all the resources towards me because I had money, one. It bankrupted me, it broke me, but Vincent Hansen, who's the famous oncologist in this town, who lives right there, Thomas Blanche, my uncle, his old business partner, I mean, the Blanche name goes all the way back. Vincent believed in me. He believed in me. That's the only reason I'm alive. So it's happened again. This kid had been shot by Roy police, just like the Blair murder, as suicided in the Weber County Jail. This happens over. This is how it plays. I mean, I'm telling you, it's the capital of the world. This is Olene Walker Foundation, female governor. Her mother was my second grade teacher. That's be T.O. Smith's wife. Her auntie was my first grade teacher. School's reopened here. I just going to pick up my grandson. They did a great job. It worked out really well, I think. But anyway, I'll flip the soup can. Oh, I don't got the soup can. So it's happened again. So I think people cannot wrap their mind around this. The biggest social movement in American history is Black Lives Matter. Was, with all statistical probability, with all reality, started by a white guy in Utah named Kevin Blanch. It's true. You know, it came out of the Million Mass March, but before the Million Mass March, my radio show going, I had huge viewership. I'm in the streets of Brooklyn. I'm in D.C. I'm in Washington Square. That's where the term came from. All Black Lives Matter was not a hashtag. Someone in 2013 started by Kevin Blanch. Before that, Matthew Stewart in January of 2012. Then later that year, the most heinous murder by cop in the history of this country happened on. Remember the second. Danielle Will was shot in the face by Callie. I know him. You know, even the review board. I'm friends with the Dispatch. She still works there today, Ashley. And so, even that group right there says no. Even the internal investigation, the police says no, it was a murder. How come he didn't go down? They fired him, which usually they don't even do that. But I'm friends with Danielle Ward's mom. I mean, it's heartbreaking. She says it feels like she's been murdered multiple times. Boy, I can relate. Stand up to this machine, you know. I mean, I almost want to start crying. The murder capital by cop of the world is right here. I talked recently, it's online, at the Black Lives Matter protest in Ogden. The only time Standard has me blackballed, they did put my picture up there, but the original Black Lives Matter protest even in Ogden was long before that one. Me and the Fremont High School kids, you know, way back. I mean, standing here by myself, standing in Salt Lake by myself, Black Lives Matters in 2012 with a central line hanging out of my jugular vein at the, you know, on the temple grounds, the Salt Lake Temple. You know, it's unarguable. Danielle Willard, Matthew Stewart. It's happened again. So I will quote Mrs. Stewart. I says, well, what do you think? Randy Richards was my attorney then. The Masonic Temple that I hand chiseled, that's where his office was, him and Bernie Allen. They represented Matthew Stewart in this case. People used to come in with stacks of hundreds like that. Gun toters. He had a gun. When they came in, he was a marijuana plant, they called on him. He was asleep at night. His wife set him up, and they walked through the backyard and said, they raided his house. He was asleep. He worked at Walmart, the night shift. And he came in and he woke up and he went like this. And it was hee-haw hoedown. An officer was killed, Jared. Another one was maimed for life. You know, watch peace officer. I mean, none of it should ever happen. Matt Tubbs, my close friend at West Weber Elementary, we grew up together. The cops killed him in the West Weber church parking lot, chased him down. Pillar of the community. You know, and then his daughter commits suicide. I mean, I go on and on and on and on and on. Black Lives Matter was started by a white guy in Utah. It's unarguably the biggest movement. I get no, I'm broke. Anybody just, I mean, I rely on public funding. I get by with a little help from my friends. So, Matthew Stewart's mom, I says, well, do you think they hung him? She says, I used to think that at first, but no, I think he did it, but, and her dad pipes up, you can watch it, it's online, says, oh, they drove him to it. Randy Richards said was such thing, and I know D. Smith personally too. He used to work with Randy, and I know D. really well. He was the prosecutor then, and he'd been handed the job. He didn't get voted in, blah, blah. I went to school with Chris Allred here. You know, we graduated together. The #1 school of business in the United States when we were #1. His dad used to be a professor here. I know him. I taught with him. You know, it's all tied together. You know, John Bond, who's the treasurer now on this thing, I know him too. All went to school here. You know, this #1 school of business, the Wattis Curse. Well, now they've turned into Chinese. It's the most corrupt university in the country. The library's not open. So I'm at the Weber County Library this morning doing my work, which is the best ran library in the country. And if you don't think I know, I have a stack of library cards this deep in my wallet. How many minutes are we on this? Oh, we got time. Because I work the coast. Weber County Library, Mrs. Wainsgard's a gem, by the way, from Denmark, her family, just like my family. They came together, the Wainsgards, the Blanches, Witcher, Mickle. Half the bloodlines here are all Danes. because Denmark had been pummeled in the ATC. I mean, wiped out again. We're the happiest people on earth because we have very low expectations. Why? Because if the Prussians don't pummel us every 30 years, the Germans did, they'd been pummeled again and wiped out. There were no men left, you know. And so they send them, oh, your grandpa Kevin, your great grandpa, oh, he didn't have one, but he had two sexy Danish girls, but they had kids. And the names changed. Something rotten in the new Denmark on Balco. So it's happened again. I mean, I think it's hard for people to wrap their mind around that the biggest social movement in the history of mankind was started by a white guy in Utah. It's true. You know, I started it. So I'm at the library this morning, and here comes the soccer team. And so, the soccer team, I'm like, what are you guys doing here? We need some public library. The girls' soccer team, they're all there. What? Yeah, this one's not open, and it's under the same umbrella by law. So I'll say, oh, you can make a reservation. And then here comes the golf kid. I run into the golf kid from Spain today. Same story. So, something rotten in the new Denmark. So it's happened again. In the name of Trayvon Smith, say your fucking name, Damian Lillard. You played here with Trayvon Smith. And by the way, Donovan, you know, you make your money in Utah now, your paycheck, these overpriced fucking tickets. Say her name. Say her fucking name. Her name is Danielle Willard. That's how Black Lives Matter started. Stay in tune.